come to hear about the catastrophe that Brexit is threatening us. Just as by way of introduction, really, for those of you who don't know what an MEP is, and you would be surprised to know that a lot of people don't know what an MEP is, or even that they have MEPs. I am one of 10 MEPs who represent this region, and the region is enormous. It goes from Buckingham and Milton Keynes right the way down to the Isle of Wight, including the Isle of Wight, all the way along to the Kent coast, and everything that is not London is in the southeast region. It's a huge region. You have 10 MEPs here. Unfortunately, you have, they elected 4 UKIP MEPs. 2 have since left. 1 has gone to the National Front, so you're represented by the National Front. 1 is independent. You have Nigel Farage, and you have another one. And there are 3 Conservative MEPs, and 1 each of Labour, Lib Dem, and Greens. So you're well represented, whatever side of the view you are. But we're all there. I thought when I was going to get elected that what I wanted to do was concentrate on the environment and the catastrophe that is happening to the environment. And even in the face of Brexit, there's still a lot of work to be done on that. Brexit is a real side issue for most of Europe, but they have all these crises to continue with, and that is rebuilding their economies after the crash, but also the migration, but climate change and biodiversity loss, and working around the world. So I am still busy on the environment. The other one is human trafficking, very similarly in scope to the wildlife trafficking, very often the same people. However, Brexit it almost takes up my waking and thinking hours, really. And I am also on the Bureau of the Parliament, and as such I have a big office. So I said, what I can do here is convene a cross-party group, because all the Labour MPs, the Plaid Cymru, the Scottish Nationalists, even the Sinn Féin and the Greens, we are all pro-European, and some of the Conservatives. And so I hold regularly, every 2 or 3 weeks, we have a meeting, the cross-party meeting, and we liaise with the cross-party group in Westminster. So I'm very busy, and Brexit really takes up that. Added to that, I also sit in the Liberal group, the ALDE, and the leader of that is Guy Verhofstadt. And as many of you will know, he is the chief negotiator for the Parliament with the Commission and the Council dealing with Brexit negotiations. And I think the message I bring from the European Parliament and from my European colleagues is how frustrating it is that the Brits won't come up with any negotiating things to put on the table. They come up with ideas and fuzzes and fixes, and we'll do that with technology. But actually, meat on the bone is not there, and that's an all-consuming frustration for all of them. But what they tell me, and what they are absolutely certain about, there will be no cherry picking. We cannot have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, some sort of movement but not free movement. We can't have access to the single market, but some access but not others. It is no cherry picking. You take everything, the 4 fundamental freedoms, or you have a separate free trade agreement. And so those are really difficult. And my other colleagues are saying, what is wrong with the Brits? They cannot see an upside. On the other side of Europe, you have Ukraine sitting there knocking on the door of Europe, recognizing that it is the biggest market on the planet. It is a bastion for human rights and freedom and democracy. It's not perfect. Nobody said it was perfect. If it was perfect, I wouldn't need to go there and help them make it better. But it's the world's shining example. And for Britain to leave it is nonsensical in the extreme. There are no upsides to Brexit. I have thought of one, though. Having said that, and that's probably, we don't need that 3rd runway at Heathrow. So, after all this time, I haven't thought of anything. The predictions are grave. With no deal, it'll be an 8% less growth. Even with a free trade agreement, it will probably be about 5% less growth. And even if we stay inside the customs union and the single market and reject a lot of others, it's a 2% loss in growth. And that is your government's policy. That is your government's policy to do damage to the economy. And for me, that is not what government is supposed to be there for. They didn't have to choose the hardest option. Mrs. May campaigned here, as she did across the country, to remain, and yet she has gone for the hardest possible option outside the customs union, outside the single market. And that membership is, there are over 50 international trade agreements that will fall on the 29th of March. We will have to renegotiate those. It is not a done deal with those 50 other trade agreements that they will just say, okay, well, Britain will keep the same rules and terms and conditions. There are 750 other sort of agreements and protocols that our daily lives rely on. And we can go through those: air travel, servicing, parts, pilots, the food served in your aeroplane, the tyres on your aeroplane, the flights, the ticketing, the insurance, all of that. That's one thing. The environment, the air, water, CO2, the blood and the human products that move across borders, the qualification of the doctors who come and work in our health service, your EHIC card, medicines, equipment, funding, sites. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And in Justice and Home Affairs, the European arrest warrant, the Lawrence accusee was taken in Spain last week and will be coming back on a European arrest warrant. Data exchange, money laundering, joint investigative teams that work across Europe. These are all at risk. It is not just about trade, and the sooner we start standing up and shouting for it, the better.